Chat, I just want to ask one question, and I think that long-time viewers of the channel can guess. They'll be able to guess the question I'm about to ask the chat. Is this the adults in the room? Is it? Is this what it is? Is this what we've got here? Is this what we're witnessing in front of us? In number 10 Downing Street, in the mother of all parliaments? Is this the adults in the room? Are these the sensible centrists? Is this serious politics? 100% super serial? I don't know. But it's certainly funny, right? Whatever's happening, it's certainly incredibly funny, and I'm very much looking forward to covering it with everybody over the next few days, as we definitely won't see the resignation of Keir Starmer, according to himself. Although, it's just perfect, isn't it? It's just so perfect. The quiet that we're all enjoying. It's super nice, this quiet, isn't it? But more broadly, given the comparisons that I have made between Boris Johnson and Keir Starmer, it's nice that he is ending his time as Prime Minister in much the same way as Boris Johnson did. No dignified transfer of power, which is what Catherine West wanted on Sunday. No admission of defeat. No introspection to understand that maybe Starmer himself is the problem. No. None of that. He's going to have to be dragged out of number 10, kicking and also screaming as well. This is going to be the reality, that there's going to be a string of resignations, statements that he can't continue from the backbenches, just as did with Boris Johnson, and he will continue to profess to the public and to his own MPs and to his own party members that he is still the right man for the job, even with tumbling personal approval ratings lower than the Labour Party, right? Like, Keir Starmer is so hated. Not only was his name coming up on the doorsteps as a significant individual reason, that's why people had abandoned Labour, right? Like, that's what MPs are saying, is that they've never heard a specific Prime Minister be brought up on the doorstep so often as the reason why that Labour had lost their vote, right? In the same way that Boris Johnson had a similar low approval rating when he was forced kicking and also screaming as well out of number 10 in ignominy, right? But on top of all of this, he's also seeing the ministerial resignations, real kind of pretty tough takedowns of him as well. Like, Jess Phillips's resignation letter was quite something, where she essentially accused him of being so bad at being Prime Minister that he was failing children to be protected online, insofar as basically everything that we had been saying from the start. This guy can't actually run anything, doesn't believe in anything, and is too busy doing process and trying to be Rainier Wolfcastle in terms of his prime ministerial attitude to passing policy. So that was a pretty damning indictment from Jess Phillips. We've got all of the other letters that we're seeing from Chris Curtis, and we saw Josh Simons say this as well, basically saying that whilst he is good at the fact that he's changed the Labour Party, which we will come to later on, but ultimately he's not the right man for the job, which is essentially admission from the Labour Together clique, which is who Josh Simons was previously the chair of, essentially saying that, well, we done fucked up here at Labour Together by putting someone into office who we only had there as a placeholder to purge the left, who just accidentally stumbled into number 10 in 2024 off the back of Tory failure, and we're going to have to rethink the fact that this man doesn't know what the fuck he's doing, because it's clear, right? It's clear that he does not know a single thing that he is doing. And because he is, again, like, it seems to be totally oblivious of the fact that he personally is hated to a huge extent by the electorate, really despised by the electorate, that he's just refusing to go. He's refusing to see that he is the problem. Like, how many exposés do we need to have of Keir Starmer's continual failures at basic levels of governance for him not to realise that not only is he terrible in the minds of the public, he is the wrong person for the job, kind of prima facie, right? Like, what are we doing here? Like, things have gotten so crazy. In terms of what's happening in number 10. Like, this was the thing that really threw me over the edge in terms of the Boris Johnson comparisons, right? Downing Street has told Labour's backbench parliamentary committee there are no dates available to meet him for 3 months. 3 months. The committee is meant to have access to any Labour leader, whether they're Prime Minister or not, to be able to discuss the topics that MPs are concerned with, right? I'm like, he's literally in the hiding in a fridge territory. He's literally in hiding in a fridge to be totally uncontactable by the Parliamentary Labour Party because he refuses to go. Literally doing the Boris Johnson, I don't want to have to speak to anybody about this, la 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 la, fingers in my ears, you can't sack me if I can't hear you. It's just so funny. It's so funny. Like, he's such a monstrously awful human being. Like, for all of the claims that we've heard from his supporters that he's an honest and decent man, right? They continually say this to this day. The people who defend Keir Starmer, that he's an honest and decent man. I'm just like, how decent is he when he's refusing to go like this? When he is dragging the name of the Labour Party through the mud with his insane foolhardiness and stubbornness by maintaining his position in the face of insurmountable odds, it seems. Like, no one has ever, as Prime Minister, suffered the number of people necessary needed to at least ask the question about the confidence in leadership and then has survived. This happened to Thatcher, it happened to Blair, it happened to May and Johnson, and it is obviously now happening to Starmer as well. Like, no one's ever survived this, reaching the threshold to have a vote of confidence, essentially, and live to tell the tale. Like, they've just not had any success if that's happened. This is really the death knell. It is over. It will be over eventually, which is why I've titled the stream what I have titled it. There is no coming back, and it's just how long this guy decides to stick his fingernails in before he actually gets literally dumped upon by everybody. Of course, he's got it in a circle. We saw interviews earlier today with Beth Rigby and Sophie Ridge from Sky News who were continually saying, we support him, he's got letters of support. This was Pat McFadden, Liz Kendall, and I believe Steve Reed, real kind of Labour together stalwarts here. But outside of this tiny, ever-shrinking clique of people that, again, Starmer has surrounded himself with specifically to protect himself because he thought it would be ideological differences that would bring him down rather than the fact that he's fucking shit at his job, that he's a terrible person, an awful human being who does so many bad things, who lies constantly, acts with dishonesty and subterfuge, is hated by the electorate because of those lies. I mean, they all call him a liar. It's the most popular word used to describe Keir Starmer is that he's a liar. So many different reasons, both policy, personality, leadership style, and governance style that have caused him to be hated internally and externally. And it's basically just left with him, Pat McFadden, Liz Kendall, Steve Reed, and Morgan McSweeney in the bunker. And he's in his downfall moment. He's refusing to admit defeat. He's literally refusing to admit defeat. It's pathetic. It's genuinely pathetic. And this level of public humiliation is all that he fucking deserves. Everything that he has done to the Labour Party from 2017 until today was leading up to this point. Specifically, rigging the MP selection so there'll be no proper challenges, even though they're still challenging him anyway, because of how bad he's been. And on top of this, making sure that there was no one of any kind of levels of competency within the Parliamentary Labour Party to be able to challenge him. Like, Streeting is obviously part of his clique, so it's just replacing like with like. Angela Rayner basically only stuck around because she was elected as leader, but now there's the tax stuff that's leading her to not have a potential challenge, maybe at this point. Apparently, according to The Star, she might be running up a leadership challenge. I think that she should, just because there needs to be somebody there who's worked a real job in their life, potentially going to overtake from Keir Starmer. And the other challenger is Andy Burnham, who's not an MP. This was a deliberate rigging of the selection processes to ensure that this would be the case, because nobody within Starmer's inner ring, within the Labour Together Politburo, thought that it would be like this. They never thought that he would be so apocalyptically bad whilst being ventriloquised by Morgan McSweeney, that it would lead to this level of dissatisfaction amongst the Parliamentary Labour Party that they had self-selected. They thought they were in for the long haul, that the adults were in the room, the sensible governance had continued, having removed the populists of, Truss and Johnson, all the people that they thought were bad because they governed badly, not because they were bad people ideologically. And they took over with good people who they didn't think had good ideology but thought were good at governing. And they never thought they had... It was total hubris of their part. It was total hubris on their part to think that it could not happen to them. And here it is. It's happened the same way. All of the parallels are the same. Hubris, lying, dishonesty, and then at the end of the day, total stubbornness to realise when it's over. The Johnson parallels are 1-1. They're 1-to-1. What else can you say? What else can you say? Did Labour Together care enough to game this out? I think, well, they did care. They just never expected it would be like this. They could not look at Keir Starmer, and indeed the political project that Labour Together has crafted for him, because again, his policies aren't his, they're Labour Together's, right? They looked at this policy prospectus that they had crafted from opinion polls and triangulation between different voter groups and thought, there is no way that we will lose with this. There is no way that we can lose with this. Because again, they were hyper-targeting swing voters, as I've said many times, and that meant that the bottom half of their coalition fell away, and they never thought that there would be any chance of that happening. They never thought about the rise of the Greens. They thought they would be able to temper the rise of reform with some immigration reforms. Neither of those things have come to pass. They had a punch a hippie strategy. That's literally what John McTernan described it as when criticising Labour Together, which is the end result of the bottom half of their coalition falling away. And they were so sure that their programme for government would be so likeable, would unite so many parts of the country that it never did. They had no plan in case it all went to shit. They had no plan in case it all went to shit. And here we are. Literally, here we are as the end result of these people's conniving and foolhardiness, where it looks like the Labour Party itself might just totally implode. Because, of course, one thing that we've seen is that one of the likely candidates to be leading the party, if they can't get Burnham a seat and if Rayner's tax affairs come back to bite them, is Wes Streeting. Of course, he's damaged by the Mandelson stuff as well, but there was this crazy thing that was tweeted out by the guy from Bloomberg, I think it's Alex Wickham is his name, saying that if Wes Streeting becomes Prime Minister, the soft left might coup him in a shorter time than Liz Truss. Like, we're literally at a point at which the person who's most likely to be leader at this point is so hated internally he might lose his job in 40 days or whatever, because they just really don't want him to be there. I think it's unlikely, but we'll see. Now, it's worth pointing out, throughout all of this, Keir Starmer has his defenders. Obviously, there's Labour Together, but the fact that they've had the Mandelson-approved self-selected cadre of MPs that they rigged selections for in terms of the Parliamentary Labour Party, specifically self-selected for loyalty. There are 100 people, 110 or so MPs, I think, who've signed a letter saying that it would be bad to have a leadership election at this point. And it's just like, yeah, because these people owe their political careers to Starmer and McSweeney. And they don't want their faction to go away, because that means that they are no longer the chosen ones of the Politburo. They're the chosen ones of the Politburo. So the fact that there's like a potential counter-coup to their potential successor, and also there's this big open letter where, you know, Sleeve McDykel and Bobson Dugner and Todd Gonzalez are going to kind of band together as know-nothing, nobody MPs to back Keir Starmer purely on factional grounds, again shows you that this party is totally irretrievable. It's totally unsalvageable because it's just full of incredibly incompetent, uncaring, and solely self-interested people who don't know what's good for them or what's good for the country. This is where we're at, chat. This is where we're at. This is not even the funniest thing. Like the Starmer hiding in a fridge stuff also is very funny, but I think the funniest thing was this. According to Politico, Buckingham Palace has privately asked Number 10 whether the King's speech should go ahead tomorrow. One source says, the palace view is, we do not want to be any part of this conversation, do not bring us into it, which is incredibly funny. It's incredibly funny that with the King's speech tomorrow, which is supposed to be delivered by Keir Starmer, or at least delivered to King Charles by Keir Starmer in terms of who writes the speech, who signs off this stuff, the King has essentially gone, mate, is everything okay? Is everything fine? Do you need me to do this? Do you need some time to yourself before we do this King's speech? Because it looks like you have bigger problems. And this is so funny. The King's team told Number 10 officials that it was important to avoid any impression of the monarch being used for political purposes. The Cabinet Office in Buckingham Palace declined to comment. I mean, that's basically true, you know? If there are people within the PLP or within the Politburo who are specifically saying, you can't have a leadership election, or what about the King's speech? It could be seen as weaponizing the royal family for political gain. And they wouldn't be wrong. They wouldn't be wrong for saying that, because it's true. If you're saying that the King's Speech is some reason why there shouldn't be upturning of the Labour leadership, then you are weaponising what is supposed to be impartial royal family for political gain. You can just do the King's Speech later if you really want, once you have a different programme in place, but it's all very, very funny that they've lost everybody, even the monarchy at this point. Am I not embarrassed? I mean, I think the country is embarrassed. I think the country is incredibly embarrassed. I am having a fucking whaling time. I think this is incredibly funny. And it is the culmination of everything that we said would happen up until now. The dizzying unpopularity, the failure to be able to bring a coalition together, the appeasing of the far right, and the incubation of the far right opposition whilst the floor of the coalition fell away and there was nobody left to vote for them, support them, or even like them anymore. I predicted literally every moment of this from day one. I didn't necessarily predict that he would end up having to resign in disgrace like Boris Johnson. I didn't, but I don't understand what the difference really would be, considering that we all knew he'd be unpopular, right? Like, am I kind of grimly enjoying this? Like, yeah. Is this bad for the country? Obviously. Like, obviously none of us wanted this. None of us really, in our heart of hearts, wanted to see our country collapse politically. None of us were desperate for this to happen. We were just resigned to the inevitable, because obviously that this was going to happen. Like, we obviously knew this was going to happen. This wasn't our choice, but it was something that was inflicted upon us by the political class and the SW1 people who desperately thrust Keir Starmer into the spotlight with no criticism in the run-up to the election. They were like, yep, this was going to happen. Like, we have no dog in this fight because our politics has been marginalised by these self-same people. Rather than bringing us in, they said the door was open that we could leave. We did leave. They left no one else to be able to vote for them. We knew this political catastrophe was coming, and no one would listen to us if we warned them. Everyone was telling us that our opposition was based upon student politics or anti-Semitism, or that it was based upon not understanding what politics is like because we were unserious, we weren't the adults in the room. So all of our criticisms were left unheeded, all of our warnings were ignored, and so as a politically powerless bloc outside of what we can do to move over the dial in the Green Party, we were in no position to make sure that this ship wouldn't hit the rocks. We were warning of the iceberg and no one listened to our pleas, no one listened to the warnings. They've hit the iceberg, the ship is sinking, and all we can do is get in the lifeboats and see how quickly the Carpathia can come and pick us up. We were already in the lifeboats before everybody else was, because we could see it coming and there was no way that we could avert disaster. We tried, we failed, and so all we have left to do is to sit amongst the wreckage and, I guess, laugh at what has happened, because there's nothing we can do to change it. Again, like, it's funny, it's terrible, but if I stopped laughing, if I wasn't laughing, I'd be crying, because this is my country. It's the country that I'm a citizen of that's going to go to shit because of the failure of this awful government, because of the totally inept ministers, because of the lack of a vision. They literally got into government. These people literally got into a government with no plan of what they were going to do. Like, Maurice Glassman basically admitted this on Newsnight, that in the 5 years they were in opposition, they didn't think that they would win in 2024. And so they spent all of their time in opposition purging the left rather than preparing for government. This is unforgivable. Literally unforgivable that they spent all this time not even bothering to try and think about what they would do in government. So they've got into government by accident, and they don't know what they're doing, and it's caused them to absolutely fail miserably. It's indefensible. This is, for all of the talk of serious politics, of being grown up in terms of politics, when all they engaged in was factional warfare, rather than bothering to actually plan for government, and then get into government, expect Sue Gray to do it for them, and then after 100 days go, where's the plan, Sue? And she goes, that's your fucking job, you're the politicians. Like, they fucked up. It's insane to me that it's allowed to go on for this long. It's crazy to me that Keir Starmer didn't resign after we found out that he had appointed somebody who was the best friend of a fucking paedophile into the diplomatic office. Like, best pal, his own words. That is Lord Yum Yum Mandelson himself, right? Like, this should have been the end already. The fact that it's taken this long, having, again, proven and shown that they are totally unable to govern properly, outside of, like, Ed Miliband and Matthew Pennycook, I guess, who were the two people in government who actually have a plan for what they want to do and continually produce policy documentation, right? Everybody else, totally incapable. Peter Carl, incapable. Liz Kendall, incapable. Bridget Phillipson, not a clue what she's doing. Wes Streeting, ditto. Seemingly he's only in the, well, health fucking secretary position. Clearly, Streeting is only in the health sec position so that he can use it as a springboard to challenge Keir Starmer to be prime minister. They all don't know what they're doing. They're literally entire cabinet of people who don't have a fucking clue what they're doing because they didn't bother trying to find out what they would do until they were thrown into office and then asked the civil service or their parliamentary staffers what they should be doing. It's pathetic. It's an absolute disgrace. And the fact that they are, as a political grouping, the Labour right, who've subsumed the party and again specifically tried to change the DNA of the party, which is what Labour Together said they were trying to do, to the point of, being completely unrecognisable to the public, so much so that they're now supporting Nigel Farage, like places that have voted Labour for 50 years turning away in Halton or in other places in Merseyside that have gone away, or Barnsley or Sheffield or, the Newcastle, Greater Newcastle area in the northeast, Sunderland totally taken over by Reform, and I'm just like, this is the reality of the politics that Labour Together wanted, and we are now sitting around in, as I've said, like the wreckage of the ship that they have deliberately and maliciously piloted directly into an iceberg. How can you have policies when you have no principles? Well, that's the thing, right? Is that even people around Keir Starmer knew that this was the case. They just never thought that someone so, in their mind, inoffensive could be hated so much that they could just change the policies and it wouldn't be linked to Starmer. But he is so awful at being prime minister that the opposite of that is true. Cancelled woman should stand, and her and Bridget have been besties for a long time, great friends. I mean, I think Bridget Phillipson is probably somebody who Labour Together have had their eye on. She's been part of the Labour Together clique for quite a while as a potential future prime ministerial candidate, But again, she's still, as far as I'm concerned, indelibly linked to the Labour Right project that's failed this so miserably, and she's a transphobe. And on top of this, like, she's just really bad at her job and she wouldn't be a good prime minister. If I was looking at a Labour woman who I thought would be a good prime minister, I'd probably, like, I don't know, Millie Thornberry? Obviously, she's kind of been tainted by the defence of Keir Starmer in 2023 after October the 7th, right? But, like, who else? Like, I mean, there's basically nobody in the party who's good, But, like, is Emily Thornberry the best woman for the job? I mean, precious few other people. Is there a world where Starmer stays? No, it's over. It's over. Like, again, it would be an incredible defiance of essentially all history on this for Keir Starmer not to go. Every single time somebody, as prime minister, sitting prime minister, has had their opponents internally reach the necessary threshold to be able to question the confidence in the prime minister, they've always eventually resigned. It happened to Thatcher, it happened to Blair, it happened to May, it happened to Johnson, and it certainly happened to Liz Truss. The BBC are reporting that Keith and Wesley will have talks before tomorrow's King's speech. I mean, I'm assuming it's Wes telling him that the jig is up, that the game's over, that there's no way coming back, right? Miliband is essentially the least worst option. I mean, I don't mind Ed Miliband. I think the least worst option for me is Angela Rayner, because at the very least then you'd have somebody who's, worked a real job and is somewhat authentic as Prime Minister, and it would piss off all of the poshos who think that she wouldn't be good enough because she's from a modest background, right? Like, I don't like her politics, I don't like her personally, given what she's done and the kind of traitorousness that she's engaged in, but I fundamentally believe in the utility of pissing off posh people, so I'll take that. Apparently, Andy Burnham does have a potential seat lined up in Greater Manchester. Someone has said that they're potentially likely to stand aside so that he can run in a by-election, but it'll be interesting to see when the Greens fight that if he wins, but can it be done quickly enough, given the quick collapse of cabinet confidence that we're seeing right now, to get into Parliament for a potential leadership election? We don't know. I think the reason why Streeting might be meeting with Keir Starmer, I think why Wesley might be wanting to have his ear, is because in terms of the actual political policy making, Wes and Keith are pretty much on the same page, so that they can have a King's speech that puts together both of their ideas, and then he becomes the heir apparent, right? But would Ed Miliband outlast a bacon sandwich? I mean, it is quite funny, but I don't think that the bacon sandwich was the biggest reason why he lost in 2015. But it's still a very funny meme. she upset the poor people because of the tax thing, so she is toxic to them. But that's a big problem for her as well. It looks like she might have had that sorted out. We shall see. The Greens should mandate that they will step aside if he introduces proportional representation or some kind of electoral reform. I mean, that'd be a good trade, I think, in terms of Burnham. Should Labour make a turnaround post-Starmer? Is there anything they could do to change your mind, or are you Green all the way? I think I'm just backing Polanski regardless at this point. I mean, I will still be a Green member, but I think that with someone like Rayner or Burnham in charge, there is a possibility of working together. I think there's a possibility of these kind of political factions working together and trying to build some kind of popular front, I guess, to take on the far right. Obviously, that can't be done with anybody linked to Labour together, which means, Rayner's probably, on the precipice in terms of that strategy, right? But I think Zach Polanski was right that if there's any position with which the Greens could potentially see working together with Labour to beat reform, it would have to be under someone that's not Starmer. And out of the likely people, I think Burnham and Rayner have proven that they're the least objectionable in that regard. Do you think Ian Murray or Dougie Alexander will throw their hats in the ring? I don't think so, no. Photo from 2015 when West Starmer and Catherine West took their seats for the first time in one photo together, posted by Keir. Yeah, I did see that. Yeah. Angela Rayner went down in your estimation when she told that Palestinian who lost his family, "You've made your point." Oh yeah, again, I think she's a bad person and I don't like her politics and I think she's a traitor, But again, the entirety of the Labour Party, despite fucking loads of people internally within the PLP professing how working class they are, and I'm just like, you're all like highly paid professionals. You're led by a Knight of the Realm who was the highest paid lawyer in the country, who was chauffeured around on the public expense for like £160,000 in total. That isn't salt of the earth working class person that you've got there. And likewise, I mean, Burnham is slightly more northern, I guess, but he did go to Cambridge. And yet Angela Rayner has a real background of living in the real world, which would at the very least mean that she can win over some people who feel like the political class is totally divorced from the lives of real people. And again, there are loads of posh people out there who literally hear her with a northern accent, who in their mind can't speak proper, who has lived a normal life and doesn't have their levels of qualifications that they say must be in order for you to be a good Prime Minister. Her being Prime Minister would piss those people off. And you know what? Everything is worth... If there's anything worth doing, it's pissing off Tories. And I think, to me, that's far more important than whether or not I like her personal politics. And again, she would be significantly better in terms of policy than Starmer would, given her links to the trade unions. And I think she'd be more likely to be under the thumb of the trade unions as well, which would make the policy better too. Even if she's a bit of a traitor, maybe a little bit too soft left, the fact that she's linked to the trade union movement and she wouldn't want to lose their support would mean that she'd be easy to be able to at least somewhat push around from union support. Did you hear Margaret Hodge get corrected for saying Zach Polanski is anti-Semitic during the Today programme of Radio 4 this morning? I did see that she said that, but I didn't see that it had been corrected. What do you think of the Polanski council tax story? I feel like I would not know what taxes need to be paid on a boat. I mean, it looks like a very complex situation. And according to Dan Needle, who first reported on it, it seems that actually on the marina, they kept telling people the landlord would pay the council tax, and then they never did. So basically only one person ever paid council tax. It was clear on the people who were on that marina who were moored there, very few people thought they would have to pay it, or they were all dodging the taxation, in which case, doesn't make it more defensible, but at the very least it seems that he's not alone in this. Imagine Thornbury versus Farage in a debate. I mean, it would certainly be more interesting than, Starmer versus Farage. It wasn't corrected, they just said Polanski would deny those claims. I mean, it's just BBC all over, isn't it? I mean, no one believes it, though. No one specifically believes that Zach Polanski is anti-Semitic because he's Jewish, No one really believes it. And in fact, that when you look at the polling, people think that Labour and Reform are more anti-Semitic than the Greens. So the anti-Semitism stuff isn't catching, so it's clear they're moving on to his claims of speaking at the Red Cross, not being a spokesperson for the Red Cross, as if that's a meaningful fucking distinction, Dan Needle donated to Luke Akehurst in 2024, and no one talks about it. Well, Dan Needle was a member of the NEC, was an NEC candidate, right? The Luke Akehurst backed. I mean, not surprising, SW. I didn't think so either, Becca. But apparently, if you're at a marina, then you should, and it's your primary residence, you need to pay council tax. Oh, there's a bunch of like things that are going to ruin social media or using social media for news that the government are trying to pass on YouTube, which would be terrible. Like Dylan Page was talking about it. It's true. It's not an issue. And again, you know what? I'm not a spiteful person. I saw somebody on Blue Sky was like, "Can you have a go at a bowler hat man on Threads or whatever?" Because of all of the electoral consequences that Labour have had. And I'm just like, I know, no, I've done enough of a victory lap now. I think my victory lap is over. Anything more would look spiteful. And you know, as a spiteful person, in the words of Mark Corrigan, as a petty and vindictive individual, I need to take extra steps not to appear petty and vindictive. Sorry, I got popcorn, just in case. 11 and 10, you have to pay council tax. I did not know that. That's crazy. Yeah, I'll leave that up to Kev. In lieu of power, Schadenfreude is a pretty good consolation prize. I mean, that's basically it, you know? Like the Angela Rayner potential leadership stuff, it's apparently, according to the start, she might still have a Labour leadership bid. And again, I think she'll be the least bad candidate if there's no Andy Burnham, but I don't think so, Stephen. Angela Rayner has told Labour MP she's ready to launch a leadership campaign despite still being under investigation. Despite throwing her support behind Andy Burnham, Angela was struggling for support, but she'll still be a big beneficiary if things move quickly. The source added publicly she's making very loud representations that Andy should be allowed back, but she is also texting everyone saying she's ready to go. So there is still a chance that we may see Angela Rayner launch a leadership bid. Anyway, let's watch some Labour MPs react to the scenes that we're seeing. We'll start off with Carl Turner, who spoke to Times Radio.
I texted him this morning, actually.
Did you hear back from him?
He's not replied. I don't expect him to in these circumstances.
Has it gone on to the blue tick? Has he read it?
He's read it, but he's read it, but he's not replied, and I don't expect him to. But what I did say in that message is, remember your friends on the way up, because you need them on the way down, and he needs them now.
We can talk now to Carl Turner, who is the independent now MP for Kingston upon Hull. He was suspended from the Parliamentary Labour Party on the 31st of March this year. Carl Turner, a very good afternoon from us. What do you want to happen now?
Well, good afternoon. I've made a statement today saying that the Prime Minister should resign from his position as PM with the view to set a timetable for an orderly transition and allowing the democratic process of the Labour Party to kick in.
Just talk us through what that democratic process looks like. Is it necessarily an orderly transition?
Well, I think it needs to be because the Parliamentary Labour Party, and I think the members as well, would feel incredibly angry if there was some sort of palace coup whereby a particular candidate is crowned the Prime Minister and they're entitled to get on with the business of government. I don't think that's in the interests of the Parliamentary Labour Party, which is incredibly important in this. I don't think it's in the interests of the members of the Labour Party, and I certainly don't think it's in the interests of the general public either.
Do you mind?
I mean, that's basically true. Again, Keir Starmer's personal clinging on to power, the digging in of the fingernails, the refusal to see sense here, is damaging for everybody. It's obviously making the members look stupid for being part of this party. It's like making the PLP look stupid to their own electorate that they're still dealing with this fucking mess. And it's bad for the public because they lose confidence in politics altogether. It's a real issue in terms of political enfranchisement and of political engagement if every time we elect a prime minister it turns into this shit show, you know? But it is still a shit show. Someone asked us in chat why he was suspended. He was suspended for rebelling over the jury trial stuff.
Be asking what's in your best interest. Who's the most likely candidate to let you get back in? I mean, presumably you do want to get back in.
Well, I do want to get back in, but I think any of the candidates would allow me back into the party. I don't want to speak about me today. There's more important things happening, but I should never have been suspended for opposing the absolutely ludicrous idea of curtailing jury trials, not least when the Prime Minister is a human rights lawyer, a very well-respected member of the criminal bar for a long time. And
things people wonder why he's so hated. People wonder why Keir Starmer is so hated. Again, gifted this huge majority. All they needed to do was like not be idiots. And the favourable business cycle that they have had, right? Up until the Iran stuff, they've had a favourable business cycle. We've seen wages rise and inflation go down because of the nature of when they got elected. And all they need to do is not do stupid things. It's all they've done. It's all they've done. Like, Carl Turner described this as the daftness of the daftest daftness you ever heard in your life when speaking to Nick Ferrari about this jury trial restriction thing. No one asked for this. No one wanted this. It wasn't in the manifesto. At no point have they even tried to explain why it would be a good thing. The only thing they've said is that it would fix the backlog, which isn't true. All the evidence suggests that that's not true. And all it's done is polarise their own MPs and the public against them. And they're so single-minded in terms of believing that everything they're doing is correct, they're refusing to change course. It's crazy.
Somebody himself who campaigned to scrap single-judge trials in Northern Ireland because they're unjust and because they led to miscarriages of justice, but then to try to implement them to England and Wales. By the way, Wales, incidentally, doesn't have a problem with backlog, but this government and this Prime Minister wanted to foist upon the people of Wales, who we've now lost in terms of our political control, the idea of single-judge trials. It was ludicrous, should never have been suggested. Prime Minister should be ashamed.
True. He's just not wrong. He's not wrong at all. It's incredible levels of hypocrisy, and they've at no point justified it. That's what's so crazy about it. At no point have they justified it, and all you can think of, the only reason that makes any sense is that they're using it to be able to be as authoritarian as possible. We're seeing this with Palestine Action. We're broadly seeing this with their approach to justice more broadly, that the expediency of being able to politically persecute people can be the only justification because they've not explained how else they'll use it.
You used very strong language at the time in making all of those criticisms, which I believe form part of the case for suspending you. I mean, there are other of your former colleagues who are coming out today using very strong language now, Jess Phillips being one of them, about how difficult they've found it to deal with Keir Starmer. Is there a sense of a pile-on being a very unpleasant thing to witness, particularly at a time when we have a febrile economy, we have very difficult decisions, we have an uncertain place on the global stage? Is all of this just going to get a little bit too nasty?
I think it's already very nasty, isn't it? I think it is, unfortunately. But I'm afraid to say this, and I've said it to the Prime Minister directly, this is self-induced. When you treat the Parliamentary Labour Party with contempt, as the Prime Minister has done, not directly, by the way, but he's not been very...
I mean, he has treated them with contempt directly, Carl. Don't give this guy an out. He's been awful to the Parliamentary Labour Party. He's not bothered meeting them. He's not bothered convening them. When it came to the PIP reforms, he refused to meet them for 9 months. At no point did he try and convince people to vote for it. He didn't bother asking them their opinions. It got to the day before the vote where the whips went out and asked what their opinions were, realised they didn't have the votes, and had to pull half the legislation at the 11th hour, despite going to the Commons with the unamended bill to try and get them to vote for it, having not spoken to them at all. He does treat them with contempt. He does run them up the hill and then run them back down again when he U-turns eventually on every policy that he does, because there's no mandate, there's no reason, there's no support. It wasn't in the manifesto, right? They continue to have to march them up and march them back down again. He does treat his MPs with contempt, and mostly because he doesn't have any ideas, he doesn't have any vision, he's not sold anything to everybody, and he's lied to the public and lied to the MPs and lied to the members and lied to everyone. It's so much is the level of contempt, right? I don't not like the Parliamentary Labour Party. I am a Green Party member, and the PLP is stuffed with Starmer sycophants, right? I do not like the PLP. Even I will empathise with them. How poorly Keir Starmer and McSweeney and the Politburo have treated them. Essentially, like fucking numbers on a spreadsheet that they will end up having to use to pass legislation. That's why they rely so heavily on the whips. Why they remove the whip so fucking frivolously. Whether it's Carl Turner... Whether it's Carl Turner or Chris Hinchliffe or Diane Abbott or anybody of the people who rebelled over the two-child cap on universal credit during the King's Speech period, or anyone else for that matter, they're power hungry, they are control freaks, and at no point did Tony Blair do this, someone else who's also awful, but not so awful as to treat their own PLP with contempt and treat them as a rubber stamp for whatever stupid policy they've dreamt up that they're going to do with no mandate. And the PLP have to defend this, and then have to defend the U-turn as well. It's genuinely crazy how awful and calamitous this government has been in terms of the way in which they govern.
Warm towards colleagues in the history of his time as leader of the party and indeed Prime Minister, then I'm afraid to say people turn against you when you need them most. I texted the Prime Minister a couple of days ago. In fact, I texted him this morning, actually.
Did you hear back from him?
He's not replied. I don't expect him to in these circumstances.
Has it gone on to the blue tick? Has he read it?
He's read it,
Ooh.
but he's read it, but he's not replied, and I don't expect him to. But what I did...
That's the thing, right? It's the level of contempt he's shown his own MPs in terms of how he's approached governance has meant that they've obviously been very easy for them to turn on him. Again, they should have turned on him before now, but it was the Catherine West spark that ignited the fire underneath Keir Starmer's premiership, that collapsed the foundations, that's led to kind of the outpouring of calls for resignation, all of the ministerial resignation to try and prompt him to leave. Because outside of the Mandelson-approved 2024 selected intake, right, of Starmer loyalists, everybody else in the PLP has been treated with absolute abject contempt. Everyone else in the PLP has been treated with contempt. So he has no allies outside of the self-selected Mandelson-approved 2024 intake with which to draw upon support, making it very easy for them to trigger enough people for there to be a leadership election.
Saying that message is, remember your friends on the way up, because you need them on the way down, and he needs them now.
Ouch. Did you put an emoji at the end of it?
I didn't bother with the emojis. I'm not very good at the technology, but the message that I wanted to send to the Prime Minister was a strong one, and I think he got the message. I have no doubt about that. My relationship with Keir Starmer has always been good and constructive. I think we considered each other as friends at one point. And tragically, the fact that I spoke against what became a flagship policy of the Labour Party meant that I had to be suspended from the whip. But worse still, and that's what I put in my statement today, worse than that, the whips and Number 10 began to allow smears against me on the basis of mental health.
Right, okay.
And that had to be stopped by the Prime Minister. And I'm afraid to say, despite the fact that I corresponded with him through my lawyers, he allowed that to continue. Now, Keir Starmer knows that. It happens to be in the public domain now.
Right. As a man who you know and you have counted as a friend, what will he be thinking today? And many people just can't understand how somebody can be so stubborn and to have said things like, you know, I believe that I may be here for another 10 years in government.
He's an arrogant fuck, right? He's an arrogant fuck who's had the wind blown up his arse by the media, by his own sycophants, by the Politburo that surrounds him, right? He's continuing to have the smoke blown up his ass. He hasn't realised he's a fucking monster, rubbish at his job, useless at governing, doesn't believe in anything, and the public fucking hates him, right? It is part and parcel of the insanely easy run that he got into being Prime Minister in the first place, where he was essentially coronated by the media with no scrutiny up until he got elected, no questioning of their plan for government, no actual plan was extolled by the party because they never got asked about it or at any point questioned by the media. They were too busy watching the end of Sunak and enjoying his failing election campaign and failing premiership. They didn't even bother trying to look at what Labour were proposing and poke any holes in it, because there were fucking more holes in it than Swiss cheese, to quote Sharon Graham. You know? Like, this is why we're in this position. It's because he felt totally invincible, because he was invincible. He was invincible from 2020 until 2024, because all he was the stick with which to beat the Corbynites, which is what the media wanted. So he wasn't scrutinised, now he's in office, he doesn't know what to do. And that level of invincibility that he had essentially been able to cultivate internally within himself has led him to not understand how criticism is supposed to be dealt with.
And not really be able to read the room well enough. Is that the Keir that you recognise?
It is. Keir is very determined, is probably the most hard-working person I've ever met in the 16 years I've been in politics, in Parliament, that is. He's incredibly committed as a public servant, and he has a plan. But regrettably, he struggles with communicating that plan outside.
He doesn't have a plan, though. He obviously doesn't have a plan. Sue Gray was his plan. Then Morgan McSweeney was his plan. Subcontracting out decisions on policy was his plan. He has no plan of his own.
Of his own front room, I think. He struggles to communicate that vision and plan to the Parliamentary Labour Party, I think to his cabinet as well, and definitely to the country. And that's because I'm afraid Keir, who is a man I had great respect for but I've lost now, is not very political, unfortunately.
Interestingly, he says he's lost all the respect now. The history, it's not very political. He is perfunctory. There's a list of MPs who signed the letter of support public. Yes, Jessica Elgert from The Guardian posted it.
As a result of the fact that he lacked the politics needed to be the leader of the Labour Party and Prime Minister, he surrounded himself with people who were supposed to be good political advisors, who give really poor advice at times.
Do you want the most charismatic character to win? Is that the direction that you think would favour the Labour Party now?
Well, I want the person to lead the Labour Party to be competent first and foremost, and the chopping and changing, the uphill and downhill on policy commitments, the U-turning after U-turning after U-turn, and the pulling daft policy from thin air without pitch rolling with the Parliamentary Labour Party is the stuff that needs to stop. But what also needs to happen with the new leader is whoever that new leader might be needs to be able to communicate a message to the country. On the doors last week.
Well, the problem is, of course, is that the inability to communicate is part and parcel of the lack of politics of Keir Starmer. That's why he kept saying, oh, I'm going to lay out my vision and why I do what I do, because he doesn't know already. If you're 11 years into your parliamentary term, 6 years into your leadership term, 2 years into your prime ministerial term, and no one knows what you stand for, your values or your vision or your ideological basis for what you do, then you fucked up, like you failed. Of course, because he never had any of those things to begin with.
In that election, every single door that I came to, bar 1 or 2, said, I can't vote Labour all the time, you've got Keir Starmer. Now, I don't think Keir Starmer's done anything particularly badly, but I think the trust of the country has gone as a result of the shenanigans that Keir Starmer allowed in Downing Street. The man.
Well, that's the bad stuff that you say you didn't recognise.
An appointment, then trying to find others to blame. The fact that he was allowing spectacles to be bought for him. Yes, they were declared, but actually people didn't expect the Prime Minister to be getting his specs paid for by Lord Ali or anyone else.
Mr.
And let
Turner,
me just tell you about a conversation which is an important one, I think.
Okay, very briefly, if you can.
Very briefly.
Yes.
I spoke to a woman on the doorstep on the Wednesday before the election on the Thursday. She said to me, what about Keir Starmer with his spectacles? Why can he afford his own? I said, hang on a minute. What about Farage with a £5 million donation, which ought to have been declared because it was in the 12 months running to the election where he was elected? She said, we don't care about Nigel Farage because we expect Nigel Farage to be very naughty. We don't expect Keir Starmer to be when he went to the country saying he was holier than thou. And that's the problem.
So true. Literally so true. 100%. This is the big problem. The biggest problem with Keir Starmer is that he kept running on being Mr. Rules, on being someone who would bring back sincerity to politics, someone who would bring back standing on ceremony, who would bring back some level of lack of corruption. There would be the end of the Tory chaos. The people in charge would have principles again. And the reality is he's just the same. Just the same as Boris Johnson, the same in terms of political scandal, the same in terms of appointing friends of paedophiles, the same in terms of being funded by dodgy people, the same in terms of the internal political rat fucking, the same in terms of the dishonesty, and the same in terms of the ignominious end to his political career as Prime Minister, right? He's one and the same. He has become the Prime Minister that he specifically went to the public against from everything, in terms of the policy, his actions, his attitude, his governing style, his ideological base, which obviously doesn't exist, and the lies, you know? This is the reality. Thank you, ML, for the 10 gifties. I appreciate the support. There are currently 470 of you watching today. If you're enjoying the content, the best way to support the channel is to subscribe. First of all, it's free to subscribe if you're a new viewer. Please subscribe to the channel. It's free to do that. It helps support the channel. You can also become a member of the channel. It's only 99p. It's cheaper than a can of Red Stripe. Thank you, Mighty Gumber and Tomix and Tom Hill Hacks Value for the memberships, and this sick guy for 15 months of membership. Appreciate for your continued support of the channel. And you can also gift memberships to your fellow viewers, as ML has done with the 10 gifties, thank you, which boosts the stream in the algorithm, spreads the love around, and means more people have memberships, which means that they get access to my emotes in chat, which I'm sure people in chat here will show you the lovely emotes in the YouTube chat for yourself there, and also gets you access to the archive live streams at the low cost of 99 pence per month, which is cheaper than a can of Red Stripe. And on top of that, if you want a message read out, you can do so by super chatting. I read out all super chats regardless of value, as long as they are not rude. You can super chat to have your message read out if you are desperate for me to hear your words. And on top of that, you can also become a patron at patreon.com/NoJusticeMTG. That is the best place to support, as they will take the lowest cut of the money that you try and give me. So Patreon, always a good place to go. I mean, that's exactly like broken a load of pledges they had no intention of keeping. Just constant dishonesty from day one. Will someone please think of the donors, though? All that hard-earned cash they've wasted on their little briefcase. So true. Literally so true. I mean, that's also true, El Ramos, yeah? We really should hold all our politicians to the same standard. And the problem is, of course, is that there needs to be a standard, and like, people consistently fail, and it allows the most corrupt, the most insincere, the ones with the least probity to rise to the top, because they can run on the idea that everyone else is bad. It's how Trump won. I mean, they're pathetic. They're the pathetic losers that Stella Santakidu talks about. SW. So true, Kazoo, so true. How long do you estimate he has left? It can't be long now. I'm assuming it'll happen this week. Of course, there is some level of which the King's speech potentially puts a spanner in the works for happening sooner rather than later, but I think it will blow over Dalek, yeah. Think he'll be busier this week? More coverage to search through, getting up early to check if he's out yet? Basically, that is the case. I'm probably going to be checking. I mean, as you've seen, if you follow me on social media, I've been more active than I otherwise would do. So there will be a lot of me, at least on social media. I might do more streams. We'll see how it goes. I will continue buying more bags of popcorn. I did see Big Al that the Daily Star have picked up another lettuce. I wonder when they're going to put the live stream out. I mean, people who don't understand, they've not... The kind of politics that Starmer represents are people who care far more about tone rather than substance. That's the issue, Hammond. The people who like his tone but haven't bothered scrutinizing the substance. Did I win Magic the Gathering? I did not. We're going to do a Resignation Watch group call in the Discord. I did see, yeah. I mean, that would be fucking insane, Steve. After the election defeat over the weekend. It would be insane if Keir Starmer called a general election to save his premiership. That'd be so fucking funny. Well, we don't know who will replace Starmer, Marsh Mobilised. Again, there's talks of Andrew Rayno, Andy Burnham, Wes Streeting, Ed Miliband. Absolute Helena. I did see them get approached by Beth Rigby and Sophie Ridge to talk about what was going on and whether or not they had support the Prime Minister, and likewise. I've got the ending celebration scene of Return of the Jedi for when he goes, oh my god, that's such a good idea. And let's see what Miata Fanbele had to say about all of the resignations and the future of the PM.
Just explain why you took the decision to quit.
Yeah, look,
Thank you, Steve, for the 5 gifties. I appreciate the support.
it's not an easy decision. It's a hard thing to walk away from your team, to walk away from the chance to have an impact on the country as a minister. But for me, I've spent the last few months on the doorstep speaking to hundreds and hundreds of constituents. And the message was really clear. They have lost confidence and trust in the Prime Minister, and they don't believe that he is able to deliver the scale and the change that is required for us to deliver on our mandate that we promised the country. And I come to the judgment that that is right, and that ultimately the Prime Minister does need to do the right thing for the country, and he needs to set a transition so that a new leader can take over and deliver the scale and pace of change that we need.
It's worth pointing out too, chat, that all of the MPs who are the 2024 intake are the ones who are backing Keir Starmer, right? The Sleeve McDychalls of this world, the Todd Bonzaleses of the PLP, right? They're all the ones that are backing him. I didn't really think about this before now, but it's probably a little bit to say here. One of the things that Miata Fanbele said there was that what they're seeing and hearing on the doorsteps are people saying, we hate Keir Starmer, we won't vote Labour because of Keir Starmer. And those MPs who are hearing that are likely to be more older MPs or MPs in areas of long-term Labour MPs being elected, where it's either Reform or Green switchers, because Labour are losing Reform voters in post-industrial areas and Green voters in urban areas. So those are the areas that are the most likely to look at Keir Starmer and see somebody who they don't like. Whereas the MPs who were elected in Whereas the MPs who won in 2024 are more likely to be from areas where it's full of middle income, high earning professionals, who are the kind of people who Starmer's premiership is aimed at, who are less likely to bring it up on the doorstep. So maybe there is at least somewhat of a dynamic here where the people who are really, really, really standing behind Keir Starmer are the ones who are only interacting with people who actually quite like his premiership, rather than the people off the base who really hate him, who, in Camberwell and Peckham, you're far more likely to hear people go, I really hate Keir Starmer, than in, I don't know, Banbury or something, right?
He's not getting that message, though. He's digging in.
If only we'd have a mass floor crossing to the Greens. I don't think that would happen, and I wouldn't want it.
He's staying put.
Well, look, the Prime Minister's a good guy. He has always tried to do the best thing for the country. What I'm hoping is that he will reflect. And there are two fundamental questions. Can you command the confidence of the country? Because you need that if you're going to take the country with you to deliver the scale of change that we need. And are you capable of delivering the level of ambition? People are frustrated. They've had 15 years where things have not been going right and working for them. And they want a government that can step up. And the Prime Minister has to reflect, and ultimately it's his choice, it's his judgment on those two questions. And
again, when it comes to the confidence of the country question, he doesn't have it because a third of the country voted for him, and he has a giant majority. Literally, dictatorial power off of a third of the vote. 2/3 of the electorate did not vote for this man, did not vote for the Labour Party, did not vote for this government. So 2/3 of the country are getting what they didn't want. That is not democracy, and it stands to reason why everyone's angry with the results of an election that feels like it's rigged because of the stupid voting system.
the answer to those in his heart is no. I hope he will do the right thing. I hope he will put in place a proper process and a transition so that we can have a range of people who can set out their stall, set out their vision for the country, tell us how they will deliver on our mandate, on our manifesto in the most ambitious way forward, and then we rally around that person.
But you say it's his choice and his judgment. Actually, there is another way, obviously. Wes Streeting or someone like that who's seeing the PM tomorrow could stand up and say, right, I'm going to launch a leadership challenge. Shouldn't they have the decency to do that, people who are briefing privately?
Well, look, I don't do briefing privately. I speak
You're
my
doing it
mind.
publicly on the pink sofa.
This is why I'm here. But look, I can't speak for Wes Streeting. I can't speak for any of the potential runners and riders.
So you're not part of a coordinated...
A third of the vote, and also the turnout was super low. Azisha 54% turnout, wasn't it? Let me check. General election 2024. 59% turnout, one of the lowest turnout elections we've had in years, and so 60, just below 60% turnout in terms of the electorate, and of those people, only a third of them voted for Keir Starmer and the Labour Party. So like a fifth of the country, like 80% of the country, are getting something they didn't vote for.
Plot.
No.
You're not teeing this up with Wes Streeting?
No.
A coup, the left of the party suspects?
No, look,
I mean, why would Miata Fanbale of the New Economics Foundation back Uber Blairite West Streeting? That doesn't make any sense.
I don't think this is a coup. For me, this is a personal decision. It's a really hard thing for colleagues to go on the record and to say that they have lost confidence in the Prime Minister, that they don't think he can lead us forward. That is a very personal decision. I know each and every colleague will be grappling with what they heard on the doorstep, and those were some tough, brutal messages that we got, and trying to make a judgment about what is best for the country. And ultimately, it's not about a coordinated plot, it's about each of us making that decision. I can't speak for Wes, but what I will say is whatever we do, we need a proper process. We need to do that in a timely, proper way so that we can have a conversation about the best possible way to respond to the demand for change, the urgency.
Yeah, Farnbale's fine. I mean, she backed the PIP cuts whilst having written as a member of the New Economics Foundation as to why welfare cuts were bad. And so I am disappointed in her, but ideologically she's fine. Like, solid, like, Tribune group left wing
for change
or centre left
that we are hearing loud and clear from all of our constituencies and our communities.
Have you spoken to Wes Streeting in the last few days?
No, I've not spoken to Wes. I've not spoken to anyone. Like I came to this. No, I came to this decision myself. And look, ultimately, people make this about personalities. It's not. It's about the country.
But have you spoken to his aides, though? Because, just to knock this on the head, that it's not a plot.
This is not a plot.
Have you spoken to Wes Streeting's aides?
with the New Economics Foundation? Or they're a left-wing, kind of heterodox think tank. They do good work. I think that the current chair of the New Economics Foundation is pretty good. He's been on Question Time a couple of times. We're good at elucidating left-wing economics.
No, I've
So
not.
they had no idea you were coming out and doing this?
No, and if anyone knows anything about me, I'm probably seen to be on a different side of the party from Wes, and that is the key point.
Ed Miliband, though, did you let his aides know, give them a heads up?
I told my boss, Steve Reed, that I was doing this. I told the whips, I told Number 10 in advance. I had already said all of this to them privately. I didn't want to have to go public. I felt I needed to, and that's because ultimately...
Part of the problem is that the Labour Party rules are basically written to entrench the Labour right in power. Tories have quite a well-defined mechanism for cooing leader. That's very true. That's very true. Well, thank you, Steve MC, for the 5 gifties, by the way. And thank you, the platform, for the £5. I read your comment, but I didn't say thank you for the £5.
If you're part of the team, you've got to believe that the boss is the right boss to take you forward and take the country forward. And that is not my judgment. And I couldn't, in all good conscience, stay on the team.
What did Steve Reed say to you?
He said, look, stick it out. And I said to him, look, this is a question for me about conscience, my relationship with the constituency. I've heard a message loud and clear, and I think it's important to speak up. And obviously he disagrees.
Was he angry? I mean, was there, because the party at the moment looks like, I mean, it's riven, isn't it, from top to bottom?
No, I don't think so. Look, I have a really good relationship with all my colleagues. We are not, the press like to do the personality politics, the drama. In the end, you've got a set of colleagues that were part of the same Labour family. We care about one thing. All of us came into politics to do one thing, which was do right by our constituents and our communities and deliver change. And ultimately, we will come together. Labour Party does not do leadership changes over and over again. We have one shot at this, which is why I think it is so important that we have a proper, orderly process where we have the range of talents, and that does include Andy Burnham, who is a fantastic politician, has a track record in Greater Manchester, probably our most popular politician. We need him in the field with everyone else. Set out your stall for how you deliver for the country, and we will rally behind the person that we think is the best person that can deliver the mandate that we have, and it's a mandate that the Labour Party have, that all of us that signed up to that manifesto have, the best person to deliver that.
So, do you expect an MP to stand aside to let Andy Burnham come back into the Commons ASAP?
Well, look,
I think it's just crazy they keep talking about the mandate. I mean, they don't really have much of a mandate. And the manifesto they were elected on is incredibly fucking thin and empty, but incredibly restrictive. Again, like, this is the problem. The biggest problem with terms of changing the leadership is that they're so heavily restricted with what they can and can't do by what the manifesto said that they wouldn't. And anything that they do is likely to not be in the manifesto and can get blocked by the Lords if it's anything kind of too far away from what they think is acceptable, right? If it's not a manifesto pledge, they can't use the Salisbury Convention. So they can't really be that radical, can they? Like fiscal rules stuff, that's not going to change apparently, regardless of who wins. So really tough. Like that was manifesto pledge, I think, the fiscal rules. So I don't see how a leadership change would necessarily change the policy direction enough to be able to save it. Maybe save them being humiliated, but wouldn't win them the next election. I'm just thinking that if you get Andy Burnham, he'll get you electoral reform, most likely, but they'd have to rely on the Tory Lords to pass it.
I can't speak for Andy Burnham. You'll have to ask him that question. But what I am very clear...
But a deal's being done behind the scenes, isn't it?
I don't know. But what I am very clear about is that any contest that we have has to be a proper conversation about how we take the country forward. And that does require us to have all of our talent, and that does require us to have Andy in.
So is he your favourite candidate?
I think we need to slow down. I think we need to take this in time. My ask, the ask of many of my colleagues to the Prime Minister, is set in train a proper process. Do it calmly, do it slowly. None of us want the chaos. None of us want the...
Have you seen the guilt here?
Does the manifesto have anything to say about not implementing electoral reform? I think it says either way, but a big constitutional change, like changing how the election works, has to go to the electorate. Maybe Andy Burnham might do a referendum on electoral reform. That could be potentially a thing that they could do. Once it's got public support in terms of a referendum, then the Lords be less likely to block it if it was proposed, but we'll see.
I mean, they're responding. You're saying orderly transition, take your time. You haven't got time. You haven't got the luxury of time, have you?
Well, I think that's within the gift of the Prime Minister, because if he grips this, if he does this in an orderly way, if he says, you know, my personal view is that he needs to see us through the summer. We are in the middle of a war. We know that the war in Iran is going to
We're not in the war though, are we? Oh, apparently we are though, because we're allowing Americans to fly from our military bases at Fairfield.
have an impact on our communities over the summer. I want him to serve the country and lead us through that, put in place a proper process, do it in a calm, orderly way, allow the best of our talent to set out their stall over that period and then transition properly.
So by digging in, is he actually making the markets more jittery, do you think?
It's within the gift of the Prime Minister to do this.
I mean, I think she's right. That is true. The level of, if there was an orderly transition, or you know, a carefully laid out process, and things weren't going to shit, and it was an absolute mess, which clearly it is right now, it'd be more likely for it not to be a problem in terms of the market reaction. But the more it goes into turmoil and chaos, the more the markets will react badly. Thank you, Alan, for the £1 donation. Thank you for the support. I think an electoral reform referendum has a good chance of passing. I agree. I think people realise that five-party politics isn't going away, right? I don't think the electorate believe that five-party politics will get replaced by two-party politics again, regardless of who those parties are anytime soon. So they will be happy to acquiesce to electoral reform, I think.
This in a way that is orderly, to do this in a way that delivers a proper transition. The Labour Party, we do not do leadership changes. We do not do psychodrama. We have one shot at
You're
this.
doing quite well at that at the moment.
Well, you know, it's pretty tough. It is pretty tough, but we have one shot at this.
Just going to get a drink. 1 second, chat.
We're not going to keep changing leaders like the Tories did. We'll do this once. We have to get that right. And it is not about us. It is not about the individuals. It is about who can step up to the challenge of responding to what our constituents want, which is change.
But is Andy Burnham your number one?
And scale of change.
Is Andy Burnham your number one candidate as we sit here now?
Well, look, if Andy Burnham was in Parliament, I'd be supporting him.
Right.
And ultimately, I think we need a process that allows, whether it's Andy, Wes, whoever else, to essentially say what they're going to do for the country.
And if Ed Miliband was to be a sort of
vision,
caretaker leader until Andy Burnham got here, you'd back that?
No, look, it's not for me to say...
Well, surely Keir Starmer would be the one who would stick around, right? Surely Keir Starmer is the one who would be the caretaker Prime Minister. If he sets out a timetable for the transition, which of course West Streeting will hate because it's a transition, if they set out a timetable for a transition, they would be able to do so pretty easily. But I still just keep Keir Starmer on and say, I will quit by this point by the time we have a leadership election.
What the process looks like. I wish I could wave a magic wand and all of this could go away and we're in a settled state on the other side
You're
of it.
hating this, basically.
Yeah, all of us are. This is not what I came into politics for.
I'm loving this, though. I'm enjoying this. This is very funny.
This is not, it's a hard thing to say to your leader, we don't think you're the right person to take us forward. None of us do this lightly. This is not fun. We're not enjoying this. We are a team. We are one team. And for some of us to stand up and say, we think it is time for you to move on because you...
The thing is, it's not been treated like a team, though. That's the funny thing. They've not actually been treated as if they're a team throughout any of this. They've all been treated like they are just total fucking rubes with which to rubber stamp Keir Starmer's agenda. They've not been treated like a team at all throughout any of this. They've been treated like losers, and it's very funny that it's taken until now to go, well, we all need to work together to get somebody in place. I'm like, you've been a nest of vipers stabbing each other in the back every single day for the last 6 years, you know?
Cannot lead us and lead the change that we want is not an easy thing, and it is not something that we do lightly.
Let me just bring in you, Mick, because I wonder what you think of what you just heard from Miata now.
Well,
My guy, Mick Lynch is here. Taken by surprise. Mick Lynch jump scare.
I admire Miata for coming out in the way she has. I knew her before she was elected, and I know that she's a good person. And it is a bad spot for the Labour Party at this time, but I think this change is inevitable. It's a matter of time and how, and there's a lot of options that all the news media have been going through today.
Would you back the Andy Burnham option, bring him back to Westminster as soon as possible?
Well, I think Andy Burnham is a better option, but none of this matters if there's not a programme. And what people are struggling with is what Labour is about. People don't understand Keir Starmer. They don't know what he is. They don't know what he believes in. They don't know what his principles are. They've forgotten what the manifesto was. He said it was one word, and the one word hasn't been delivered because they continued.
That word was change.
Yes, exactly. They've continued with the Tory fiscal policies, and you're going to get Tory outcomes.
Right. Well,
and that's what people need is a change. So whether it's Burnham, whether it's Streeting, whoever it is, needs to put forward a platform that's going to deliver change in the next 2.5 years before the next election.
Yes, let me put that back.
I mean, it's funny the idea to go, well, if it's Streeting, they need to have put forward a proposal that's not like the Tories. I'm like, you don't know Wes Streeting clearly then. The idea that Wes Streeting would be any different, he'd be more right-wing than what we have right now. Like, he would be even less change than anything Keir Starmer is currently, which is quite funny. But in the totality, Mick isn't wrong here. Like, Tory fiscal rules lead to Tory fiscal outcomes. That's the reality. That is the abject reality here.
Back to you. Tear up the fiscal rules, as you seem to be sort of hinting.
Well, look, I think two things. We will stand by, and any leader has to stand by the manifesto because that's the thing that gives us the mandate. That's the thing we were all elected on. I think the question for me is how do you deliver not just the spirit of the manifesto, but the substance and the most ambitious version of the substance. And ultimately, it will be for those that put themselves, if we have a contest, and I remind you.
How do you think Corbyn is feeling about the situation? Joy at the end of Starmer, rage at how far Labour has fallen? I mean, I would be, just kind of laughing at the ashes, I guess.
We're not in a contest yet, but if we have a proper contest, it's for each of the people that want to lead this country to set out what they are going to do. And that does require ambition. That does require an urgency to respond to the fact that people do not believe that the current settlement is working for them, and think about what that means in terms of the scale of change we can deliver.
Gillian, very quick one from you. You know, Miata is obviously hating this whole psychodrama. She says the Labour Party isn't very good at toppling its leaders, which appears to be true. Your advice as someone, you're from a party that does rather well at toppling its leaders.
Well, yes, although I didn't resign on Boris and I hadn't voted for the guy in the first place. And the reason I didn't was because you have to be really careful about where you're going. The whole reason they're in this mess is because there was not a plan in the first place.
The thing is, Boris Johnson did know where he was going, just the Tories didn't like it because he was too liberal. Like, he was actually proposing economic investment into, like, the North and the NHS, two things that the Tories famously fucking hate, right? Like, Boris Johnson really wasn't supported by many Tories because he offered something that was left-wing in terms of, like, the broad spectrum of Tory policy programmes. It wasn't, like, left-wing in the reality of, like, the whole spectrum, right? But he's certainly to the left of Cameron and May and Thatcher and Truss and Sunak for that matter as well, right? Like, Boris Johnson was hated because he wanted planning reform to build houses in Tory constituencies. He wanted state-led investment into rejuvenating the North, and the Tories hate the North. And on top of that, he also wanted to build new hospitals for the NHS, and the Tories hate the NHS. Like, yeah, of course, a bunch of rightoid fucking neoliberal shitstains in the Tory party hated Boris Johnson's vision for the country, But of course, floppy hair Brexit bad, man. Corbyn survived 2 attempts of coups because he had the support of the party. Does Starmer? Well, yeah, exactly. That's what's even funnier, is that Corbyn did have the support of the members and the trade unions as well, and Starmer just doesn't.
You need a plan now, and it really needs to be well thought through because you can't have your Liz Truss moment.
And that seems to be echoing what Miata
your
said.
Rishi.
Miata, thank you very much for sharing that with us. And, it is obviously a very painful time for you, so I appreciate you coming on.
Is Britain ungovernable? With calls for Starmer.
That's the next thing we're going to be covering. Because I'm going to talk about ungovernability again. You're not going to like it, but it's going to happen. Oh, dear. Labour's formed for the working class. It's not whatever this is. I mean, again, as I pointed out, Graham, like we know now, I uploaded a short about it today, that Labour's voter base are like really rich and well off and financially comfortable. It's the Green and Reform voter base that are financially struggling. I mean, that is true, Maplety. Although, whether he wanted to or not, he got forced to increase NHS funding because of the pandemic, but all of the problems with the NHS were caused by Cameron and Osborne. What do you make of soft left MPs saying they would ensure Streeting would last as long as Truss? I mean, it's very, very funny. nest of vipers be nest of vipering again. Like, that's the reality of the Labour Party, is that let me find the Stella clip. The Stella clip is really funny. Let me find it. He is true, he's just a small bean. He's just a small bean, isn't he, Idiosyncrasy? Let me find it. It was on Jeremy Vine. Let me find the short that they posted of Stella outlining her theory of the Labour Party. It was very, very funny.
I wonder whether if you want to stay, if you really want to stay, Razzie, and you say, look, I don't care. Yeah, I've got 400 odd MPs.
This is the one I was looking for. Hello?
And Keir Starmer has proven he cannot lead his party. He cannot lead his country. He is extremely unpopular. No matter what he does with his policy agenda, people still do not want to follow him. And there is plenty of talent in the Labour Party who are looking for an inspiring leader. I have this theory about the Labour Party. There are no factions, no soft left, Blairites, blue Labour, whatever. It's just two archetypes. Pathetic losers, evil sociopaths. Usually, when Labour goes into government, it's the evil sociopaths who have dragged it into government. They're ambitious, they are ruthless, they are not ideologues at all, they're not concerned at all with woolly feelings like values and things like that. And then you have the pathetic losers who would rather lose the war and die in battle if it means staying true to their values. Someone like Jeremy Corbyn would fall in that category. Peter Mandelson was the obvious evil sociopath.
Where does Keir Starmer sit in that spectrum?
Keir Starmer is an obvious evil sociopath because he has thrown every person who has worked with him under the bus. Even the civil servants were not safe from him. And he was the king of civil service, the king of institutional responsibility and the steward of the British state. And even the civil servants, career civil servants, he didn't hesitate to fire them just so that he doesn't take responsibility.
So this is what you witnessed first.
And like, people keep telling us, people continue to tell us, Keir Starmer's a good man, he's decent and honest, and he's somebody who is incredibly upstanding in his role as an institutionalist. And I'm just like, this man is a monster, just constantly exploding other people's careers just to save Big Dog. Literally, another like Boris Johnson corollary, the save Big Dog strategy that they had when Boris Johnson was on the rocks, right? Like, this is just the fucking same. And it's other people's careers come secondary to his own personal ambition. It's pathetic. And yeah, he's an evil sociopath. Obviously, he's an evil sociopath. That's a terrible accent. Sorry, Stella, if you're watching.
Hand as a Labour advisor. There were two separate camps, either pathetic losers or evil sociopaths. I mean, this is nobody's going to vote for Labour if they're listening to you.
No, because, well, the rest of you can ask me what the archetypes are for the rest of the parties. But for the Labour Party, what is happening right now, you have...
And the thing is, what's interesting is I do think that there is definitely a political faction in like the left wing, especially those of us who joined the Greens, who are at the very least somewhat of a synthesis, or at least a midpoint between there is a people who do have genuine values, but realise that some of them might have to be compromised on to be able to have access to office, but you don't have to be politically ruthless to everybody to be able to get there. There is a midpoint between the pathetic loser and the evil sociopath. And at the very least, right, there are enough people in the Green Party who understand this to be able to get them politically activated again. It seems like the old membership was full of pathetic losers in terms of the political archetype of people who stay true to their values rather than try and compromise to be able to be politically successful. And now we have enough people who care about winning to be able to not step on people to get there, not be nasty to people to get there, but understand how the strategy works to be politically effective.
I think that, you have someone like Andy Burnham and Angela Rayner, who are both incredibly charismatic politicians, people who I believe do have a political hinterland. I believe they do have political values. They know what they believe in. Unlike Keir Starmer, they know why they are in politics a lot more than Keir Starmer. You can see that these people are not in this just because of their own ambition. And this is why they haven't pulled the trigger. And this is their mistake. And until Labour MPs realize that power is only given to those who really want it, they will not be a party of government.
I mean, you've
And that's the reason why Keir Starmer has hung around for so long, because he has an entire cadre of evil sociopaths surrounding him. At no point have any of the pathetic losers in the PLP picked up the fucking nous to actually go and challenge him because they're pathetic losers, right? Like, this is why Keir Starmer has been shambling along like a zombie after the Peter Mandelson scandal, which really should have been the resignation moment, right? Like, how the hell has it taken this long? As I mentioned before earlier in the stream, well, of course, all of the people outside of the bubble are all pathetic losers, are literally all pathetic losers.
Cut out a huge swathe of MPs that I've certainly met from all parties who genuinely care about doing the right thing and want to make people's lives better. It feels a really damning verdict that you've given on politics, full stop there, Stella.
I mean, it is funny. You know, it's meant.
I mean, she isn't wrong, though. She isn't wrong, right? Especially not in the Labour Party, where there is no middle ground within the archetypes. You definitely see that with the Tories, that they will always compromise what's necessary whilst understanding the levels to which that you become politically disjointed internally. If it turns into a nest of vipers, it makes you look poor in government. And, you know, whilst it was certainly the policy and the result of the cost of living crisis that brought down the Tories, it didn't help. They were fighting like rats in a sack, but the fighting like rats in a sack was happening in 2017 and, you know, got 40% of the vote. Happened in 2019, got 42% of the vote, you know? That's basically true, Rohan, yeah. Labour needs some new talent, that's what's exciting about the Greens. Well, exactly, it's that Labour literally, there was a deliberate strategy to purge the talent, right? Like, there was a deliberate strategy of purging the talent to try and protect Keir Starmer. They didn't want there to be an actual successor in place. Well, they blocked Faiza Shaheen, etc. Because they knew that might be somebody who would be able to corral the names to challenge him if shit went tits up, right? They have deliberately purged all of the fucking party to ensure that they could never challenge him. And now he's fucking failed miserably and they know we have to get rid of him and there's no one fucking left. So having to rely on somebody who's not even an MP. It's fucking hilarious. Just, honestly... I mean, basically true idiosyncrasy. Literally, like, I'm so sorry to the Welsh and the Scottish, right? I'm so sorry we inflict this upon you. Where's Stella from? She's Greek. And the actual talent in Shaheen and Driscoll all going to the Greens. Yep. Highest quality candidates. Will the real high quality candidates please stand up? I think that's probably right, QVC, yeah. Specifically England. Yep, because the mainstream media and the establishment wanted the purge in Fosuge. That's the reality. Is that they literally just wanted the purge, and so they can't mention it politically, otherwise they would have to explain how all of this stuff that was happening in the background they never fucking commented on, apart from like Michael Crick, you know? They would have to admit that at the time when they should have been holding the government in waiting accountable for the shit that they were doing and for the vipers engaging in the internal factional warfare that they were engaging in, they should have reported on it and they fucking didn't. And so by acknowledging it now, that would be acknowledging their own failures of holding these people to account, right? Thank you, Steve, for the membership. I appreciate the support. Traditional Tories will toe the line as long as their pockets are lined. That's why Kevin Basingstoke is having so much issue with internals, and yeah, so true. Thank you, King. Appreciate the support. Natalie Fleet is now Undersecretary in the Home Office. I mean, just so many people just thrust into positions of responsibility from being a 2024 intake. Again, only there as a rubber stamper for the leadership. That's all a big fucking mess, isn't it? I tell you what would be funny, chat. I tell you what would be really funny. Do you know who we've not checked in upon? Do you know who at no point during all of this mess, chat? Do you know one person that we've not bothered watching what's happening to them? Someone that we've missed out upon, chat. Can anyone guess? Any guesses? Yes, Jimmy Sensible. Let's fucking go. Let's go. Shall we check in on what Captain Sensible is up to? Because I'm sure Captain Sensible is taking this incredibly well. I'm sure Captain Sensible is incredibly, incredibly serene in this moment of political turmoil. Thank you, 22 Aureus, for the £2. Your voice is so important. You're 18. Never stop. Thank you. I appreciate the support. Much appreciated. Let's fucking go. Let's fucking go. My body is ready.
Country down while claiming to be.
My body is ready for Jimmy Sensible. Let's see what Captain Hindsight has to say about the week's developments.
Done something about the people that are doing this country down while claiming to be patriots. You should have done something about the newspapers. You should have done something about the social media platforms. You should have done something about the abject corruption of public discourse. Look at what the racists are saying about you right now on social media, inventing absolute pie-in-the-sky stories involving criminal cases that, 5 years ago even, 10 years ago, definitely, 20 years ago, absolutely, would have been laughed off the page by anybody sentient in this country. But now, oh yes, it's a very, very valid talking point. There'll probably be a reform councillor popping up later claiming that it's true. It's as if chemtrails and vaccine conspiracists have been given the floor. And Keir Starmer turned up and just sort of went, well, nobody agrees about everything, and what we need to do is put our shoulders to the wheel. Geez.
James, maybe at any point in the last 6 years of Keir Starmer being leader, where that's all he's done is be asked to take a stand on literally anything, and prevaricated and sat on the fence and tried to appeal to everyone and everybody all at the same time whilst appealing to nobody because no one likes a spineless loser. Should you have called this out, having recognised it, and wanted him to at least do the opposite? The idea that it's taken James O'Brien over 6 years to realise that Keir Starmer can't actually be in any way forthright in his political opinions shows you just how much of a good journalist James O'Brien is. It's Captain Hindsight. He's obviously correct, but 5 years too late, like always.
I think you never read my last book. It's 10 minutes after 11. You are listening to James O'Brien on LBC. Let's add that question to the list. I am not quite sure how we ended up here. So this broadens out the issue from Starmer to Rayner to Miliband to Streeting to Burnham. I'm not quite sure how we ended up here. We are basically discussing a leadership crisis with no challenger. This is where I've got the David Mitchell thing.
Again, James, we are literally in this position. We are literally in this position, James, because people like you refuse to scrutinise Keir Starmer and the nest of vipers internally purging the party of all of its talent and putting apparatchiks in place as MPs rather than potential political stars because they could potentially challenge Keir Starmer under the guise of self-selecting for the highest quality candidates, when really it was about purging alternatives. Because if you had reported on it, this would be obvious to anybody, including yourself, that this is why there's no replacement. Keir Starmer has failed. He's obviously failed. You've essentially realised that he's failed 5 years too late because you do everything 5 years too late. And you're going to have to recognise that it was your lack of scrutiny and the media's lack of scrutiny of Keir Starmer's internal factional warfare that's left us with no heir apparent. This is the reality, is if there's any scrutiny on Labour's internal purging of the left, of the takeover by Labour Together, their desire to quote-unquote change the DNA of the Labour Party according to themselves, right? And use the powers in Labour HQ and the leadership to warp the party in their own image and for their own ends, we wouldn't be in this position because, of course, again, we would have known, if you'd bothered reporting on it, that Keir Starmer was a bad person. We would have known, because you'd be reporting on it, that he was going to be a terrible Prime Minister and didn't believe in anything and had no vision and had no policies. And you would have known, because you would have reported on it, that they were essentially rigging the internal workings of the party as well. But you were incurious. You liked Keir Starmer because he had sensible vibes and had the right haircut and the right suit, and because he was a hotshot lawyer, you didn't think it was worth scrutinising because, of course, he's the adult in the room. He's the only other leader that would be 20 points ahead. Well, newsflash, James is now 10 points behind. He is polling lower than the Labour Party has polled in 100 years. Adults in the room. Or you're younger than 18, 22 Warriors. Well, I'm glad that you're getting involved in politics. Younger people like you getting involved is what's important. The media will never take responsibility for their failure, says Set the Shallow. I mean, that is true. That is true. And again, like, the reason why we're talking about the fact that there are no heir apparent is because the media can't talk about the purge, because if they did, they would have to recognise that it's their fault that no one knows about it. And it was their failure of scrutiny that's allowed us to get into this position. A non-functional media leads to a non-functional politics, and that's what we have.
Kicking in again. Are we the enemy? Is this a leadership crisis caused largely by media coverage? No, because 80 MPs have told Catherine West that they want him to move on.
And also, like, this is a reaction to public sentiment. Of course, the media are going to be negative about Keir Starmer, but they were negative about Jeremy Corbyn. They were negative about Boris Johnson. They were negative about Liz Truss. I mean, to be fair, Liz Truss is kind of in the Starmer position where everyone hates her, or hated her, as they hate Keir Starmer right now, right? But Johnson Corbyn, whilst being absolutely pilloried by the media, at the very least had a base of support. They had a strong base of support. And if you actually look in terms of the representation that people were given by political leadership, especially in 2019, right? The plurality of people in December 2019, when the election was held between Johnson and Corbyn, felt represented by a political party. You go along to 2024, just before the last election, and you realise that actually a supermajority of people feel unrepresented by mainstream parties, you know? And yet the media bubble described this coming together of the political poles of this country with broad coalition supporting them and said, this is a terrible election, there's no good choices, everything is screwed up, we can't have Johnson, Corbyn, they're all bad, despite the fact that they had pretty large bases of support. Sunak and Starmer were self-selected to please the SW1 cadre, the journalistic political media class machine. Were they representative of the public? All the results say that that wasn't the case. And so the media may have been able to attack these two over here, but at the very least, the people behind those coalitions refused to do what the media said or believe the media's lies. But when it comes to Keir Starmer, there's no base to draw upon. So everybody from every side is incentivized to give the media the time of day when they engage in criticism. And I will do that, and I am that. I am indeed part of the media that has been criticising Keir Starmer from the left, because there are plenty of criticisms from the left. And that's why people don't like him, because there's nobody left for him to support. Because there's no one left who supports him. At least organically, anyway.
But what are they responding to? Self-interest or media coverage? This idea that, oh, look, here's another crisis. Dumpy. Listen, I'm weird, right? Crises are good for business. Very good for business. Days like today, I could turn up at 10 to 10. I don't even need to read the papers. I know what I'm going to talk about when I come on air. There's no scrabbling around for topics or desperately wondering whether you're going to be interested in this or interested in that. Topics like this, days like this are milk and honey for me. Good for business, great for business. But here it comes. Bad.
They have to, like, pretend they don't know what's going on. It's like, oh, the media have just concocted a crisis out of nowhere. This guy was massively unpopular because of the reaction to policy prospectus ages ago. The idea that this leadership challenge is only happening now because of media pressure and rather because of public sentiment, and the fact that there was a massive election loss, right? Are we forgetting, James, that the Labour Party just lost thousands of seats at the local elections on a council level? That there was just this huge electoral backlash, not just a polling backlash or a rhetorical backlash, but actual material electoral losses that have been imposed on the party that are making them see sense in terms of Keir Starmer's political future, and the people saying that they liked to criticise Starmer on the doorstep, as if somehow this means that it's concocted. What this guy's smoking, right? Like, It's really funny. I posted a list of the reasons why he's hated because Americans were wondering what he's done to make him be so hated by the public, right? Of course, notwithstanding the fact that he has deliberately pushed away part of his base, but he's also done policies people don't like, and people just, in the media, pretend they don't know. Like, they have to pretend they don't get it when people pull up this huge list of things that have had negative reactions from the public, right? Like, the list is pretty big here, you know? Cutting welfare for the disabled, selling arms to Israel, taking away rights to trial by jury, appointing Peter Mandelson, best friend of Jeffrey Epstein, the yum-yum friend of Jeffrey Epstein, contracts to Palantir, like a total U-turn on trans rights. Like, that was a manifesto commitment that they've U-turned on, like, self-ID for trans people, and left-wing people do care about that kind of stuff. And Shabana Mahmood's immigration reforms that were really kind of punitive on when it comes to indefinite leave to remain and settled status, and kind of asylum reform seemed pretty draconian to people on the left. And if you're on the right, like, there were loads of things that they're doing that you don't like outside of manifesto commitments, there was the change to agricultural property relief, all the stuff with the Chagos Islands, like they said they would not raise taxes on working people, and they extended fiscal drag so that working people paid more in tax, and of course, they increased employers' national insurance. Whilst that may not be a manifesto pledge break, it wasn't in the manifesto and surprised upon the country. Again, I support it, but right-wingers definitely do not support that kind of stuff. They took away the winter fuel allowance, or at least they means tested it. They ended up in the right position, in my opinion, at the end, but it was still something that you don't do when you get into government, go, everything is shit, I'm going to attack Granny, I'm going to freeze Granny on day one. No one likes that kind of stuff. And on top of this, they said they would stop the boats and smash the gangs, and they've done neither. Again, not something I am concerned with, but the right really fucking concerned about stopping the boats. And they've not done that. They've not done that at all. And on top of that, right, on top of the ideological problems people have with Labour, on top of the ideological problems people have with, you know, being complicit in genocide, flying spy flights from RAF Akrotiri, inviting Isaac Herzog to number 10, criminalising direct action groups as terrorists, locking up old ladies for holding signs, right? The debacle with the U-turns on digital ID cards, exactly, Dalek, another thing everyone hated. On top of this, he's a proven, morally corrupt, serial liar about everything, all the time. His actions as a prime minister in terms of his own career have been indefensible in terms of the people whose careers he's exploded to protect his own career. And again, he's been voted into office by a third of the public with a dictatorial level of majority. And so he doesn't have any actual organic support they can draw upon. And on top of that, we are seeing crisis after crisis after crisis, and he believes in nothing, can't extol his beliefs to the public, and people need direction, they need leadership, and he is the opposite of both of those things. He's directionless and a terrible leader.
Bad for the soul. So bad for the soul, because I'm watching my country burn. And Keir Starmer was supposed to be a firefighter. We saw on Friday that the arsonists are on the march again. The last building they burnt down is still smouldering, and they insist that they should be put in charge of the rebuilding process.
Again, he can't even notice that Keir Starmer is the arsonist. Keir Starmer is the one who screwed this up. He's still trying to claim that Keir Starmer, the good man, the good and decent man, is being undermined by tedious arsonist backbenchers. It's crazy.
Insane what's happened to this country. And for me, at least, it's Starmer's failure to do anything about that. He courted the Times and the Sun. I don't know how closely you were following things. A colleague of mine's been in touch to point out that he gave all the juicy exclusives to the Times, to Rupert Murdoch's Times. He courted the Sun. He's taking questions at his conferences from GBBs and the Daily Mail. They want him dead. It is literally insane for him to be still courting these characters, these cretins, these corrupt operators, as if he is still living in 1996 when even Rupert Murdoch could be persuaded to give somebody else a chance. Those days...
He literally got elected, James. because he refused to... Because he agreed he wouldn't implement Leveson 2 in exchange for an endorsement from News UK. It's basically what happened. And you're surprised he's not taking on the legacy media? Also, the same kind of people who fund like Labour Together are the same kind of people, the same class of people who support the right-wing media. He literally used to say he would never speak to the Sun, and of course that was another lie. Of course he was lying about speaking to the Sun, like he lies about everything.
These are over. It's right wing or no wing. It's look after wealth or clear off. And he's still sucking up to them. He's still courting them when, as my colleague puts it, they refused to even countenance supporting you when it was clear you were going to win a landslide. You should have cut them loose then. Say what you like about opportunistic client journalists in this country. On a good day, they will work out which way the crowd is running and then get in front of it and pretend that they were leading all along.
That's you, James! You're the client journalist. You're just a client journalist for Keir Starmer. And again, whilst I agree with you, the getting into bed with the right-wing press, expecting them to be able to leave you alone, having them given you, again, a gilded path into number 10 with the lack of criticism on the grounds that you wouldn't implement Leveson 2, right? Again, I agree with you, he was engaging in huge amounts of hubris, right? But to act like you aren't a client journalist engaging in endless amounts of benefit of the doubt for someone clearly unfit to be Prime Minister, it shows the level to which this man is totally high on his own supply.
With Keir Starmer, they didn't even do that. They saw which way the crowd was running in enormous numbers and just sort of went, yeah, well, let's just sit tight, we'll come for him. We'll come for him. Give it 6 months, give it a year, we'll come for him. And he gave them opportunities to come for him. That's the thing you can't forgive. That's the thing that I'm afraid blind loyalism can never assuage. He gave them opportunities. He wasn't squeaky clean. Rule 1. What are we doing? How will the Daily Mail report it? Whether it's in public at the moment or not, how will the Daily Mail report it? But be careful, because the Daily Mail are nothing if not hypocrites. We're going to make Peter Mandelson ambassador. How will the Daily Mail report it? They'll love it, Prime Minister. OK, let's crack on with...
That's what's stupid, again, is that, like, if you had done any amount of understanding of how Keir Starmer came to be, James, if you'd bothered of reporting or looking into Labour Together or the faction behind Keir Starmer or Morgan McSweeney, you would have known why they'd have done this. You would have known that Morgan McSweeney would have suggested to Keir Starmer to appoint Peter Mandelson, which we know that he did, and the only stands to reason that he did so as payment for services rendered for Morgan McSweeney being helped by Mandelson to set up Labour Together as an advisor to Keir Starmer, which we know that he was. We know that they were close, because it was asked of Keir Starmer by Jim Pickard, by the Financial Times, in January of 2024, on the fucking pre-election trail. Specifically, in terms of, you are close to Peter Mandelson, did you know he was friends with Epstein? And Keir Starmer was like, none of my business, right? You should have scrutinised it then. You should have scrutinised it when he was appointed in the first place, right? And you would have known they was appointed for the back-scratching back that was necessary, given all that happened in the background with Labour Together and the internal coup in the Labour Party. But you supported that, you refused to criticise that, because looking back in retrospect and acknowledging that would elucidate to the public that you were a factional actor here because you wanted to crush Corbynism and you didn't care who got behind to do it. And now all the chickens are coming home to roost. The chickens are having an absolute roostathon in Labourland because it is the Labour Together project that's led us to this position. And the lack of criticism of that up to now, given how much all the journalists knew, like Laura Kuenssberg knew in the 2010s, that Labour Together existed and it was there to destroy Corbyn, because she was briefed it to her, only for her to let this slide in terms of making it public in 2025 after all the damage had been done. Like, the journalists knew. Any amount of scrutiny that should have been done on the opposition was failed by you, James, because you are the football team, red team fan for Keir Starmer. You are footballified, in your own terms, in favour of Keir Starmer. And again, now the chickens are coming home to roost. The roostathon hath commenced.
That then. Oh, but by the way, when it blows up in your face, they will pretend that they never loved it. They will insist that it was an obvious indication of how unfit for the role you were and how that you should have seen this catastrophe coming from a million miles away, even though at the time they cheered it to the rafters. So, ask yourself, how will right-wing media deal with this nugget of information when they get hold of it? But remember, they are liars. They are snakes. So stop sucking up to them.
Yeah, liars and snakes are bad, aren't they, James? I sure hope that doesn't apply to any prime ministers.
Look at the list. Who's going to do that? Who's most likely to actually come at them? To actually say this country deserves better. You brought us Brexit. You brought us Boris Johnson. You brought us Liz Truss. You brought us austerity. These political disasters don't happen without media connivance and media complicity.
You backed austerity! You did that, that's you! You backed austerity in the 2010s, James! What are we doing here? Real hot dog meme hours, who up? Oh, I'm looking for the guy who did this. That's you, James. That's literally you. Oh dear, I'm so glad we watched this, chat.
And now, you're coming for Keir Starmer. Who's going to stand up and stop that process? Because Keir Starmer didn't. Is Andy Burnham going to do that? I frankly doubt it. Is Angela Rayner going to do that? Is Ed Miliband going to do that? He's already had his chance.
I mean, I think that if any of them was likely to, surely Burnham would be the one to do so. How would you say that, Helena? You surely aren't suggesting that Keir Starmer is a proven and morally corrupt serial liar. I'd never, heaven forfend, would never do such a thing.
The Daily Mail maligned his dead father. Look it up. It's one of the most hideous examples, even by the grim standards of Paul Dacre, the former editor of that paper, when they came for Ed Miliband's dead dad, a military hero who served this country, and the Daily Mail came for his dead dad. So he's not going to do it. Wes Streeting seems unlikely. Used to be a good thing for a politician to be desperate to be liked. Now, I'm not so sure. And of course, Wes Streeting, whether he's desperate to be liked or not, is loathed by a significant swathe of the Labour Party membership. So you're looking at Angela Rayner, really, as the one most likely to take the battle to the right-wing media, who will immediately respond by saying, oh, she's just bitter because we turned her over regarding her stamp duty. Please don't mention Nigel Farage's secret £5 million. I keep saying £5 million. I should apologise to Mr Farage for that. It could be £50 million. We've got no idea how much money he's secretly trousered from.
I mean, it's true. It's very true. I think James is right to point out that Nigel Farage's financial affairs and his donors to his party hasn't been properly scrutinised up until now. And even now that it's been released, the media aren't scrutinising what clearly is a giant conflict of interest, massively in scale, at least compared to the giftgate for the Labour Party. But it's about principle. It's about the failure of principle. And you can't run on being possessing of huge amounts of probity in public life and then attack the opponents for not being if your hand's in the trough as well, if you're not squeaky clean. That's the problem. It doesn't matter if the scale, it's the principle that people care about. I obviously disagree. I do think the scale matters, and I think that not paying £2,000 council tax on your houseboat is significantly less of a financial sin than getting millions and millions and millions of pounds of crypto bros to pump up the value of Tether, right? Or pump up the liquidity Tether has access to with Bitfinex or whatever. But the public don't see it that way.
Oligarchs and billionaires. Only he can answer those questions, and he won't even answer questions about the 5 million we know about. But here is Angela Rayner misunderstanding the stamp duty that she was required to pay. Zach Polanski, absolute wombat, not paying council tax on a boat and then misleading the media when they came asking questions about it. Grim. And it's happening all the time with Zach Polanski. But his followers will point out that this is as nothing compared to a £5 million, possibly 50. Only one man can clear that up for us. Being secretly gifted to somebody shortly before he announces his intention to try to become Prime Minister.
I mean, I'm going to give Zach Polanski endless amounts of rope with which to lie to the fucking Murdoch hack press about this stuff, even if he did mislead the Times. Probably not particularly good in terms of public probity, but I don't give a shit what the Times think.
That's what you should be battling.
Very good point, Rohan. Very good point. £5 million to Nigel Farage, that's the problem. What about the £4 million from Quadrature Capital, James? Not seen you mention that very recently.
You might not succeed, but you're never going to succeed when you're playing on a pitch that is steeper than Mount Everest. Unless you can at least level it a little bit, or at least you try to level it, you're never going to win. Keir Starmer was doomed from the start. Unless he tried to return the country to a place where the truth matters, to a place where facts prevail, to a place where...
Maybe James, come here. No, closer than that. But of course, no one thinks that Keir Starmer is a proven, morally corrupt serial liar. No one thinks that, do they, James? Clearly, Keir Starmer is the most honest and decent man in the world. And I'm just like, you wanted a politics where the truth mattered, where facts mattered, and you specifically supported someone whose entire political prospectus was based upon lies and subterfuge and dishonesty. I mean, what can you say? Literally, what can you say?
Where comments like fake news or alternative facts are not only treated with contempt, but actively legislated against. It is not an affront to your freedom of speech to prevent you from calling for people to be burnt alive in their beds. It is not an affront to your freedom of speech to prevent you from lying through your teeth about other members of this population, or about observable scientific facts, or about what laws are in place in our capital city. These are libels, if you like, against populations. It is not a restriction of your freedom of speech to punish you for lying, for provoking, for inciting. And Keir Starmer blew it. He absolutely blew it.
I mean, that's true. You're right, but you're 5 years late, as you are for everything, because again, if you'd properly catalogued Starmer's history of dishonesty and the level to which that he'd been corrupt and incompetent, rather than blowing smoke up his arse because you liked his haircut and his briefcase, this might have happened before now, or we might not have even gotten to this point. Keir Starmer might not have been the leader past the Hartlepool by-election because of the failures and because of the internal stuff going on as well. He might not have been leader going into the last election if at some point anyone from the mainstream media had bothered critiquing him on his obvious dishonesty, his continual, proven dishonesty, right? But you didn't want to bother. You didn't want to bother critiquing Keir Starmer because he was on your team. This is where we've ended up. Thank you, James. Thank you for all that you've done to get us to this point. Couldn't have done it without you.
So how did we end up here? This rather pithy comment from a Labour MP last night. Andy's strategy has been a disaster. Angela has bottled it. Ed is on a hiding to nothing. Wes is AWOL, and God knows what Catherine West is doing. I am not quite sure how we ended up here. I am. I wasn't 10 minutes ago. This happens occasionally on this programme. It's been a while, hasn't it? But I'm not. I'm not puzzled. I know exactly how we ended up here. We are still operating in an ecosystem that has entirely corrupted truth. We are...
I mean, you don't get it. You just don't get it because you don't realise your role in this.
Still lionising people who brought this country to its knees. We are still promoting, whether it's to the editorship of The Spectator or the House of Lords, people who are proven failures and proven liars. Why? Because they are complicit in the protection of wealth. And the way that you persuade people who haven't got any wealth that they should be on that team as well is by fomenting the intoxication of racism, of misogyny, of homophobia. Give them someone to hate. Give them someone... And what did Keir Starmer do? He joined in. What did Shabana Mahmood do? She joined in.
Again, 5 years late, mate. 5 years late. Glad you're recognising it now that the move of Labour to the right will not win them any votes, but it will lose them their progressive voters and will give credence to the narratives coming from the right, leading to the far right winning politically. You were told this. Again, I'm glad you're here now. I'm glad that you've managed to get here in the end. But again, you're just too late. Like you are every single time. Because we said this would happen. We literally said this would happen. We said that without a proper settlement from the radical left to change the fortunes of working people in this country, Labour would lose support. And their dalliance with the narratives of the right wouldn't win anybody over because it wouldn't actually be the full-throated narrative that they'd been sold by Farage. But what it would do is prove to those voters that their concerns were justified, and they would go to the farthest of extremes, the furthest of extremes, with which to satiate that political desire that had been created by the acceptance of the right-wing narrative. That was the reality of Labour moving to the right, James. I'm glad you're noticing it now, but if you had noticed or bothered critiquing this at any point before now, we wouldn't be in this mess. And that's the problem. Whilst it is important to understand, to critique on what is happening now, ensuring that you know what is going to happen in future based upon what's happening now is the job of commentators, it's the job of journalists, it's the job of the media to be able to ensure that these things don't happen rather than going, well, happen now, that sucks, glad we can look back with this with hindsight and then learn no fucking lessons once the chips have fallen. Which is why I should be doing your job, James. Why aren't I getting why aren't I getting 6 figures a month for LBC when I get everything right, and people like James get everything right 5 years too late?
Didn't make a stand against the 2-minute hate that Orwell so presciently predicted. They didn't make a stand against it. They joined in. Because the ecosystem in which a country can cripple itself in the way that this country has done in the last 10 years persists. It's still in place. And what is the point of being Prime Minister if you're not going to try to return your country to reality? I don't care who's in the White House. I don't care who's in the Kremlin. I don't care who owns Twitter. I don't care who owns the Daily Mail. The only chance a population has of sustaining accountability, democracy and decency is if facts matter. If the truth prevails, if you and I are on opposing teams, biting chunks out of each other the minute the whistle blows, but we are in full agreement about what the rules of engagement are. You don't lie. You don't take £5 million from foreign-based billionaires and try to keep it secret and then refuse with the connivance of client journalists to answer questions about it. You don't cozy up to Vladimir Putin. You don't treat Donald Trump like a sane operator when his obvious dedication to the maligning of our country is visible from space. You take this on, or you wither and you die.
The problem is that James O'Brien is suggesting that Keir Starmer is bad because he didn't take this on. He didn't stand up to the challenge of repudiating this politics. Well, he's not admitting, as we've talked about, as I've mentioned 1,000 different times on this channel, is that Keir Starmer is this politics. Morgan McSweeney was birthed into this politics via the Excalibur office with Peter Mandelson, all the way through Labour Together, and through his grooming of Keir Starmer to be Labour leader. This isn't politics that is removed from Keir Starmer that he's failing to challenge. They are one and the same. Keir Starmer is a political actor right within those parameters that you've just set out there as being bad. And again, if you'd have bothered scrutinising him before now, you'd have known this.
And Keir Starmer's done none of that. Instead, we've got this.
You did not take a question about this £5 million donation.
No.
There's 617 of you watching, by the way. So thank you very, very much for joining in today. If you're not a subscriber, please consider subscribing. Whether you're left-wing or right-wing, hopefully left-wing, please subscribe and drop a like, although I'm probably finishing up the stream in a second. If you'd enjoyed my stream today, make sure to support the channel. You can gift memberships. You can become a member for just 99p cheaper than a can of Red Stripe, the proverbial. You can donate a super chat and I'll read your message out. And you can support on Patreon. That's patreon.com/NoJusticeMTG. Or you can gift memberships to the stream to help boost us in the algorithm and to keep me in... to help me buy magic cards. If anyone feels like doing so. No pressure, no expectations, but if you do want to keep the stream going, as I do rely on donations with which to be able to do this every single day, 6 days a week, I would be much appreciated. I don't know who's live at the moment, though. Is there anything else that I wanted to cover tonight? Anything else worth covering? We did James O'Brien, talked about everything else from the stream today. I certainly will. Did really well at the last election, yeah, but the task is to build the channel up until the next election. Thank you, Captain Coconut, for the £2 super sticker. Appreciate the support. Always enjoy seeing you tear James O'Brien apart. Stop listening when he blocks me, lol. Master DeRoy says, Helene, you're one of the most reliable, consistent, hardworking political streamers out there, so thank you. I mean, I'm definitely not as hardworking and as dedicated as Hassan, because he's doing this 7 days a week, and he's doing it like 5 hours a day. I don't know how he managed to fucking do it. Do not know how he manages to do it. It's impressive, to say the least. Thank you, Antifa Vegan Boys, for the 10 gifties. Appreciate the support. I mean, the Surf's alive. Okay, I wonder if they have their raids open on the YouTubes. You're going live, and okay, I will hold out until best friend of the show, Kevin Logan, goes live. Okay, cool. We'll hang about for a bit. We'll hang about until Kevin goes live on his end, and just sit around and chat with the stream. Thank you, Idiosyncrasy, for the gifted membership. Appreciate the support. But yeah, I don't know. Will he survive? That's the question. Will Keir Starmer survive? I hope not. I really hope not. But my assumption is that he'll definitely go, given how many people we've had express lack of confidence. That usually means that the game is up. 8 hours a day is obsessive due to being on the spectrum. That's basically true. Yeah, Kevin Logan emotes in chat. Let's go. I predict you'll announce the PM's resignation live on Navarro on Thursday. I mean, everyone who's following the stream today who's not a subscriber of Navarro Media, please follow. I will be live with them on Thursday, doing my usual Thursday night slot with Navarro Media. Make sure you tune in on Thursday to be able to see me live there. Hopefully, imagine if he fucking... Oh my god, imagine if he quits when it's my turn to host Navarro Live. That'll be so good. That'll be literally so fucking good if Keir Starmer resigns on the day that I'm hosting Navarro Live. That'll be the sweet... that would absolutely... That would be the best. That'd be so good. Although I assume, chat, if he does decide to resign, it'll be on Friday when I'm on holiday. Because this happens every fucking time. Oh dear. So hopefully it happens on Thursday and not when I go holiday the next day. Fingers crossed. Fingers crossed for me that I am not rudely interrupted by the Prime Minister resigning when I'm on holiday. That was the existing sofa. A true gent says £2. Starminated chant cannot be stopped. Laser eyes. Thank you for the £2. Appreciate the support. I think it probably will be Wesley at this point. But I mean, Rayner might also throw a hat in the ring, depending on what happens. So I'm not going long. How long am I away for? From the 16th until the 20th. There will be a stream on the 16th, though. There'll be a stream on the 16th, and hopefully a stream when I'm back on the 20th, because my flight is in the evening, so I'll be able to stream before I leave on Friday. Big love, Poshbird. Keep fighting the good fight. Likewise. Free Palestine. Sky News saying West Streeting may have bottled it. A CG man with £5. I'm a data scientist in the city, Helena. Don't hate me, but most UK data is held abroad. We're not Japan. Fund managers are ready to sell if Keir goes. We have like 60% held. UK debt held internally, right? It's mostly UK pension funds, I thought. We do need to shut up Wesley emoji on YouTube as well. I mean, I would like to see Long Bailey challenge, but given the fact that she's already lost, I think that was probably going to be unlikely. Thank you, Shelley, for the £5. Appreciate the support. God, I hope it's Wes. I mean, it'd be funny. I know it'd be good, but it would certainly be funny if it was Wesley. Thank you, Marsh Mobilize. That's a great name for the £2 super chat. I appreciate the support. Come on, Kevin, go live. I'm ordering you, Kevin, to go live. I mean, I voted for Rebecca Long Bailey as well, chat. Don't blame me. Although to be fair, I did vote for Raina. I mean, to summon Kevin Logan. He's found a deceased fascist. So true. So true. I don't know, Miliband. I don't think most leaks I've seen have said Miliband's not in the running. He's unlikely to run. He doesn't want to deal with leadership again. I think Ed Miliband wants to be Chancellor of the Exchequer. Just finished a uni exam question on whether taxation is theft. Interesting. You must have had fun answering that. Is there a link for the next live? I don't really have pre-streams for the live. I just go live whenever I feel like it, basically. It'll probably be tomorrow afternoon, though, Marshmallow. It's probably next live, probably going to be tomorrow afternoon, probably like 3 o'clock, maybe, something like that. I've got stuff on in the morning, but I've got all day after in the afternoon free. Might do some cleaning, but then I probably will do a stream in the afternoon. Thank you, Erica Maddox, for the £5. I can only tolerate James O'Brien with the sanity checking. Thank you so much. Appreciate the support, Erica. Thank you. Kev's gone live. Okay, cool. Right, now I can stop the stream. Right, come on. Come on, let me choose the redirects. YouTube. Work for me. I have to refresh my live stream page, I think. Tommy Christian says, I wrote a long Facebook post when Starmer was elected about how awful he was, and I got so much backlash from so many people, including Corbynites. And boy, am I ever vindicated. Literally living in our endless vindication era as the left, aren't we? Thank you, a true gent, for another £2. Last night was very Soviets are 500 metres away. I mean, I did make a downfall joke. Der Maxfini Angriff war Befehl. Sorry, my German accent is terrible. I've not studied German in ages. Right, Kevin's live. I'm off. See you tomorrow. Free Palestine, free Kurdistan, free all the good stuff. Goodbye. See you all tomorrow.